Good morning. Welcome to another edition of the Sunday morning Hartford Library Chess Tournament. The players have just started. I believe we have 4 participants this morning. And my name is Jan van der Mortel. I'm an international master from Stores Mansfield, originally born in the Netherlands. Now a resident of Connecticut for over 10 years, and I'll be your commentator this morning. This is a tournament that is being organized by the Hartford Public Library. It takes place every Saturday morning, and it's an event where Hartford Public High School students face off against each other. They are part of a program that the Hartford Library, Boundless, and Dig USA have been involved with for over a month now, where all chess players receive up to 4 chess lessons per week. Most of them have just started playing chess, and on Sundays they get to face off against each other. We have 4 participants this morning. We are looking at a game between Nighttime and Ngozi Hibbert. Nighttime has won, I believe, 3 out of 4 Sunday morning tournaments thus far, so he will be the favorite based on that. And they've just started their game. Nighttime is playing with the white pieces, and so far we see a fairly balanced game. Well, let me do a material count. It appears that white is up a knight and a pawn. Let's see how that happened. We'll quickly go back. King's pawn to e4, king's pawn to e5, knight out to c3. Good move, protecting this pawn. Knight out to f6, pawn to d3, and black plays pawn to d5. Also a good move. There's double protection, so black is safe. And black should recapture that pawn now with the knight. Instead, black played bishop g4. Okay, attacking the queen. The knight is protecting the bishop, and white blocked with the bishop. Aha, and while white is blocking, white is also attacking with both the bishop and the queen. And there's only one protector, so black should respond to that. The most logical way to continue would be bishop takes bishop, and if the knight takes bishop, black could recapture the pawn on d5. Instead, black played knight b to d7, which is a good developing move, except that it leaves the bishop hanging on g4. Black played h5, trying to win that bishop back, but white is in time, and white traded bishop for knight, knight takes, and knight f3. Okay, so white is up a knight and a pawn, so white is in good shape and continues development of the knight and is ready to castle, which happened on the next turn. And black here recaptured the pawn, but there's a problem. The pawn is being protected by a knight, and the knight captures the queen. So it's fair to say white is off to a very good start, and more things are happening. The knight is attacking the pawn, which has no protection, which would create a fork on the king and rook. Black plays rook h6, which white captured, and black should recapture, but played b5, and white saved the bishop and retreated, and black actually did manage to castle queenside. That is somewhat of an achievement. White now ignored that his knight is under attack and played bishop g5 instead, which black could respond to by taking the knight, but black played pawn to f6 and the bishop came back, and the knight is still under attack and hanging, and black should take that if black gets the chance. Black does not take it, moves the pawn up, white takes the pawn. Now the knight has double protection, but the pawn is hanging, so black could still take that pawn. Black is attacking that pawn again. I think it is going to be trouble for the black king pretty soon. If white now starts moving his pieces towards black king, I would say the game should not be lasting too much longer. When you're up a bunch of material, especially when it's 3 points or more, which usually means you're up at least a knight or a bishop, which are valued at 3 points, then the best strategy is to attack the enemy king with all your pieces. Because if you attack with all your pieces and you have more of them, then by definition you'll be attacking with more pieces than the opponent can defend with. And that should spell trouble for the enemy king. When you're up a lot of material and your own king is in great danger, then you should try to trade a lot of pieces so that you trade off attackers to your king. In this position, white's king is in no danger whatsoever. White king is very safely shielded by this row of pawns right in front of it. There's no more black pieces that can really hurt it at all. And white's strategy should be to go attack the black king as soon as possible. What white should not do is try to win every single piece black has left on the board, because that will increase the chances of a stalemate. A stalemate is a situation where you can no longer make any legal moves, usually because you only have a king, and you are not in check. So your king is not under attack but can no longer move, and you have nothing else that can move. In that case, the game is a stalemate, and each player gets half a point. The game is a tie, which would be bad news for white in this position, because white is up, well, everything. And white should now concentrate on trying to checkmate the black king, not take the black pawns. As long as black has at least one pawn or more on the board that can still move, he doesn't have to worry about putting the black king into a situation where it cannot move while it is not being attacked. So for example, if the king moves back here, white could move the queen here, which traps the black king, but black can still move a pawn, and then the next turn white could, for example, checkmate like that. So this position, white is 2 moves away from a checkmate. Depending, now it's 1 move away, and let's see if white finds the checkmate in 1. White does find the checkmate in 1 and won a very convincing game. The other game was already finished before we started the live stream, so we will take a look at that game now and see what happened there. Let me take a quick peek, see if I can find that game. Quick break, I'll be right back. Okay, I have found the game. It's a game between Chess Club Junior with white against Davian Miranda with black, and white started with king's pawn to e4. A very popular move, has been for about 500 years or so, and will not lose its popularity any day or century soon. And black responded with queen's pawn to d6, which is a bit of a passive move because the pawn doesn't go as far, but it's a pretty solid move. And white now played bishop out to c4. And in yesterday's lesson with Chess Club Junior and Nighttime, we looked at last week's match that the Hartford Public Library played against the Bridgeport Library, in which one player of Bridgeport used the 4-move checkmate strategy or attempt, whatever you want to call it, on every single opponent he played. And he did it in a very sophisticated way, meaning that it wasn't just a straight trying to checkmate someone in 4 moves, but he had put a lot of thought behind it. And yesterday we discussed this at length and looked at how that works and how to defend against it. So maybe Chess Club Junior is trying to use it himself now. And the basic idea is that in this starting position, there are 4 pieces on the board that have no protection whatsoever. That's the 4 rooks. And these 4 rooks are as a weak spot in the position, because if black manages to attack one of them, that piece has no protection. All the other pieces have some sort of protection. For example, this pawn is protected by the rook, and the rook is protecting the knight, and the knight is protecting the pawn, and the bishop is protecting pawns. So everything except the rooks have no protection. But with the pawns as they are, it is not easy to attack a rook. So another weak spot in the starting position are these 2 pawns, pawn on f7 and a pawn on f2, because they only have one piece protecting, namely the kings. And if a pawn gets taken like that and the king has to recapture it, the king comes out towards the middle of the board and its vulnerability increases like that. So there could often be sort of attacks where the king is being drawn out towards the center of the board and other pieces start attacking it, which makes these the vulnerable spots in the starting position. And the basic idea of the 4-move checkmate is to go after this vulnerable spot immediately. And with white it looks like this. The bishop moves out and is the first white piece to attack the pawn on f7. Right now this pawn still has protection, so black is safe. Okay, black played pawn to e6, and actually he already protected against the 4-move checkmate. Because now white, despite the fact that black played pawn to e6, moved the queen out, and the queen is now attacking this pawn. If this pawn would not be in e6, then this bishop would have an open path as well, and white would be threatening to play queen takes f7. In this case it would not be checkmate, but very close, but that is the basic idea. The basic idea is for these 2 pieces, the bishop and the queen, to attack this weak spot, trying to break through. Now in this position it's not going to work, because this pawn is blocking the attack of the bishop on that pawn. So this move doesn't really threaten anything at this point, because if the queen takes, the king can just recapture. So for now black is safe. A move he should definitely not play is, for example, pawn up. When a pawn comes up, the queen will come in and checkmate the black king. Let's see, black moved knight to e7. That's a decent move. I would probably have preferred to play knight to f6, because on f6 the knight's ability increases from 3 squares. Right now the knight is looking at 3. And when it moves to f6, from f6 it will be looking at 8 squares. So you could say that the knight more than doubles its ability or its activity when it's on f6. On e7 it looks at 6 different squares. So knight f6 increases the ability a bit more, and also attacks the queen and also attacks the pawn. Knight e7 is a decent move, because from there it's still looking at 6 squares, which is twice as many as 3 where it used to be. White moved knight to f3. It's a good move. This knight now is looking at 8 squares itself, and that's about as able as a knight can get. Maybe he has an idea with that knight. Let's see. Black move pawn to d5. That's a good move. The pawn attacks the bishop and has protection by 1, 2, 3 pieces, and it's attacked by 1, 2, 3 pieces, so the pawn is safe. If white takes it, black can recapture, and then white should move the bishop away, because otherwise it gets taken. If white keeps taking, black also keeps taking, and if white keeps taking, black will be the last one to take. Let's see what white played. White moved the bishop back. That's an interesting move, because he is giving up this pawn on e4, which black did take. And this pawn is now attacking the knight, which means that the knight should move away. And he does have a pretty interesting move here. He could move the knight in such a position where he aims at this pawn and would add an attacker on this pawn, threatening checkmate. So knight e5 looks like a pretty interesting move, because at that point the knight is aiming at f7, and white is threatening queen takes f7 checkmate, which would force black after knight e5 to probably play either g6, blocking the queen, or knight g6, also blocking the queen. Instead, white moved knight d4 and probably missed that black could actually grab that knight for free. That did not happen, because black played bishop d7. Okay, white got away with that. And now white castled. A very good move in this position. There's queens on the board. So if there's queens on the board, the kings are in some danger when they don't have a very good shield. And they need a shield of pawns right in front of them. If you look at this king, it has just empty space and then a black pawn in front of it. And that makes this king a little weak. It's not that black can immediately do something about it, but in 5 to 10 moves, if this king just stays there, that could become a problem. So one way to get away from that empty space in front of you is to castle and stick the king behind these 3 pawns that are right in front of it. And the other benefit of castling is that at the same time this rook from the corner comes towards the middle of the board and can come to this half-open file. Half-open file is a file with only pawns of one color, in this case black's pawns. And when the rook comes to this e1 square, it can attack from afar something of black, namely, for example, this pawn. So it's good for the king, because now it has a shield in front of it, and it's good for the rook, because the rook can come out to this open, half-open e-file to try to put more pressure on black's position. Before that could happen, black played g6 and is attacking the queen. Now, I mentioned in the beginning that in the starting position, the weak spots are the pawns that are only protected by the kings, and the rooks that have no protection in the beginning. Now in this position, that is still the case except for this rook on f1 next to the king, because the king is protecting it. But all the other rooks have no protection. So after this move g6, I see a way to try to target one of black's unprotected rooks. And the move I'm looking at is queen to e5, which then attacks this rook on h8 and actually forces black to find his only move to defend this rook, which is to move the rook away. So if white moves queen e5, black has to play rook g8. And at that point, white could maybe take back this pawn on e4 with the queen. And another benefit is that once this rook has to move, it means this king can never castle again with that rook. Because the king can only castle if it has not moved, and if the rook it wants to castle with has not moved as well. So there's a lot of benefits to this queen e5 move. It's a double attack. White did not play it. White played queen g4, which makes me a little nervous to move on the diagonal of this bishop, and actually gives black maybe an option to move his pawn up, attacking the knight and attacking the queen at the same time, which could mean that white might lose the knight. It's still a little tricky because when this pawn moves up, for example the queen takes and the pawn takes, then this file has no more pawns whatsoever and is a completely open file. Even though there's a black knight, it doesn't matter, it's just about the pawns. There will be no pawns left on that file, and that means that this black king could be in trouble because white still has a queen. The rook can also join, so the white would have a queen and a rook on this open file with only a black knight shielding the king. That would create a lot of danger for a black king, and I'm not sure if black would actually survive that. Black played h5, pretty good move, attacking the queen, and the queen moved to g5, defending against the pawn. And now black kept attacking the queen, but in this case it doesn't really work so well because the pawn has no protection, so white could actually capture that pawn. White did not see it and played queen f4. Yeah, technically black should now protect this pawn, maybe bishop g7, but obviously since black just played that move and white could have taken it and white doesn't, it's not likely black now would suddenly protect that pawn. Black played c5, which is a pretty good idea because it attacks the knight, but this knight does have a pretty good square available. It could take this pawn, and the bishop takes back, and the bishop takes back. Instead, white played knight b5, which is a dangerous move to this king, but it's also a dangerous move to the knight because black could take it, and black does take it. Very good. Attacking this rook. But now white did see that this pawn is hanging, and this queen is attacking the rook, and also the pawn on e6. And I have a feeling where this is going wrong for black. Black did play the best move, namely making sure the rook is safe. White played queen to e6, taking the pawn and forming a battery with the bishop along this diagonal. And now black played a move that we call a self-help mate. Right now this king still has an escape square here if this queen comes out to check here. But after knight d7 the king has no more escape squares, and queen f7 checkmates the black king together with the bishop. So even though he tried a quick form of checkmate, it didn't work. Black defended, and after 40 moves the bishop and queen still ended up on that weak spot on f7. I like that game from Chess Club Junior's perspective, because we talked a lot about the queen and bishop lining up there, and he managed to get it. I see that they have just started their second game, so let me pull up those games. One just started, the other one will probably start soon. Let's see if the standings have been updated. Yes, Chess Club Junior and Nighttime started with a win each. They are actually facing each other in the second round. Let's take a quick look. Chess Club Junior is playing white, Nighttime is playing black, king's pawn to e4, and Nighttime was present for yesterday's class as well, and he played the move that pretty much kills this whole form of checkmate idea in its tracks. Because, well, white is still going to maybe try. Actually, I think he gave up on it. Because with this pawn there and this bishop coming out, the bishop will just be hitting that pawn and not the weak spot. So this e6 move is sort of reinforcement of the weak spot, taking away white's possibility to attack on this diagonal. It also has a name. This particular opening move, this is called the French defense. It was probably first played in Paris hundreds of years ago, and that's why it's called the French defense. White played knight to f3. It's a good move, increasing the ability of that knight. And black played bishop c5. So now it's almost like black is picking up that role. Now black is targeting this weak spot on f2. For now, white is defended there and doesn't really have to worry too much. Also, he could move the pawn out, the other pawn, the queen's pawn, and attack the bishop, forcing it away. Let's see what white played. White played bishop to c4, and black played pawn to d6, and white castled. I like that a lot. Now this king is stuck, or not stuck, shielded behind these pawns. And this is no longer a weak spot, because the rook is also protecting it together with the king. Once the king is castled, the weak spot moves to this pawn on h2, which has protection by the king and often the knight. But still, that could often be a place where black tries to aim his pieces. I'm not sure if that's going to work in this game, but let's see. Knight to f6 is a good move, attacking the pawn. And, well, I would think about protecting. White moves knight e1. That's this game just auto-updated to show that black won. We'll get there very soon. And we will look at that game after this game has finished, because this game is still in progress. It's a game with Davian Miranda as white against Ngozi Hibbert, and some things are already happening. Let me try to figure out what is happening. I see a bunch of pieces under attack. This bishop is pinning the knight to the king and queen. This queen is attacking. This knight has no protection. The queen is attacking this pawn, which has only protection of the king. The bishop is attacking this pawn. So there's a bunch of things by white under attack. White just moved the pawn up and attacks the bishop. The bishop moves away. Okay. Who has more pieces? Alright, very good move. The pawn moves and attacks the bishop, backed up by the other pawn. The bishop should retreat. Well, it could retreat. When it retreats, it attacks this rook. But I actually really like this move as well. It's a knight for 2 pawns sacrifice if black now recaptures. And that actually puts more pressure on this knight on f3, because behind this knight on f3 is a white king and a white queen. That makes this knight very, very pinned. A pinned is when a piece cannot move away, because it would open a diagonal, file, or rank for a bigger piece to get captured. In this case, the knight is not legally allowed to move away because the king is behind it. So white's move is chasing the bishop, and the bishop moved away. But when white played this move, the rook was actually not protected, because after queen takes rook, the knight is not allowed to capture back because it's pinned to the king. So this move is a good idea to try to chase that bishop, but actually it's a bad idea because the rook has no protection there. Black missed that, played bishop f5. The rook kept harassing the bishop, and black decided to keep it. Black could also take on the rook on b1. But in this position, oddly enough, I actually prefer this bishop over the rook, even though the bishop is worth 3 and the rook is worth 5. In this position, the ability of that bishop is much greater than this white rook. This bishop could do a lot of damage to the white pieces, and it's on some nice diagonals. And it was clearly bothering white, because white just kept attacking it. Okay, white now develops his own bishop. I like that move a lot. It's now looking at this long diagonal. It doesn't really want to go anywhere, but it's good to just shine a light right through black's position. And black moves the bishop back to pin this knight. Okay, I like that as well. Bishop c8. I thought the bishop couldn't move in, but actually it can. It's attacking this pawn on b7. That's pretty clever. White could... Well, there's not that many ways for white to defend. White could move the pawn up to have the queen then protect the pawn on b7. White played g5. I like that move quite a lot, attacking this rook. And white, instead of moving the rook away, attacks black's rook. I think white should have moved this one away. It could go to f5, where it's threatening to go to e5, pinning the king and queen. That would have been my preference. Now I'm a little afraid of this white king, because this pawn comes in joins the attack with the queen on this pawn on e3, which now could be taken after white takes the rook. Yes, black saw that she could take that pawn and took with her own pawn, but even better would have been queen takes, forcing the king back, and then the bishop can come in and take that knight, and I think white would be in serious trouble. Let's see, right now this pawn, oddly enough, is helping this king a little bit because it's blocking the file for black, so the black queen cannot attack the white king on that file. It's not that it's super safe either, but we'll see. Bishop takes d5, very good move. This bishop is now helping to protect this knight on f3, which I think could be quite important. Let's see if it does become important. I'm afraid it does become important because after bishop takes pawn, the knight takes back and the bishop is gone. That is a good development for white. The position actually is still almost even. White is up on pawn, but with a king in the middle like this and the queens on the board, it doesn't really matter that black is down a pawn. The only thing that matters is how safe the kings are. And right now the black's king is much safer than white's because there's a bishop on this diagonal, there's a pawn right in front of it, the queen is behind it. And these pieces are not too far away either. So in this position, it's very difficult to suggest moves. It's a very difficult position to play. I would start with queen h1, attacking that bishop, and then try to get the rook to the f file or maybe even to the g file to try to sort of bring the big pieces around on the right side of the board. But those are already difficult defensive moves. Queen f7 I like a lot, attacking the knight together with the bishop. And white now needs to make a move to protect that. And white does not make a move to protect that, which means that the black queen could have come down, form the battery, and take the white queen next. Okay, missed by black. Black played pretty much the second best move. Now this rook is looking to get into the attack on the white king. The white king takes the pawn, which is nice to win a pawn, but now it's completely exposed to the elements on the file, on the diagonal, maybe on the rank. So let's see. It starts with an attack on the file, and the knight blocks, but what do I see? A queen being attacked. Queen g5 check is not a bad move. It actually keeps the possibility to take the queen alive. The king moves up, and now the knight takes on e5. And both players, I think, are missing the fact that the bishop and queen are looking at each other. They're looking straight at each other's face, but they're not recognizing each other just yet. White takes back. This is still hanging. And after queen g4 check, white did see what the queen was doing on the diagonal and played a very important move. Took the queen off the board. And after black recaptured, all of a sudden this white king went from extremely exposed and weak in the middle of the board because the black queen was on the board to white's best piece. So why is this white's best piece now? Well, even though black still has some big pieces left, it's almost impossible for those pieces to trap a king that is in the middle of the board that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 empty squares around it. That would take a lot of coordination, a lot of working together of a rook and two bishops to trap that king. That's not easy at all. It might be possible. I'm not seeing it yet. And that means that this white king actually becomes a very powerful soldier, so to speak. This king is protecting the pawn. And it could pretty much start moving up. Maybe even start an assault on the black king, as long as white's other pieces also join that assault. Rook g2, I like that move because it's sort of pinning the bishop. The bishop still has moves. It could actually even move here with check, because it reveals the attack on the rooks. And That would mean the white king has to move back to protect. But it was dangerous, and here we go. The black bishop moved away to the wrong square, allowing the white rook to take the black rook. Okay, this game is completely turned around. The white king went from the most hunted down piece to a completely safe piece in the middle of the board, and white's rook suddenly came to life and took a black rook and might continue to do some damage, attacking this pawn. I think black should probably look at protecting it. Black did not. White took. And white had not seen yet that the pawn a7 was hanging, but might get there. Bishop takes pawn. Good move. King moves back, but it leaves this pawn alone. Black does not see that and moves the bishop away. And the pawn is trying to make it across, which black should try to stop. When this pawn makes it to e8, it turns into a queen and immediately puts that black king in danger. I would probably move my bishop back to look at that square and also attack the knight. Black did not, and white could have kept moving, which would have at least once a bishop. White moved the rook to a8. Bishop attacks the rook, and the rook went out to take it. Both players missed that this pawn was being protected. Maybe white saw now, I'm not sure. Maybe the pawn is just trying to get across. Well, at least one of them is. And black ignores the path to glory of that white pawn. There's two ways to try to stop it, either with the bishop or the king, to try to attack this or protect this square on e8. White gets a chance, doesn't do it yet. Black gets a chance to move the pawn, doesn't do it. And white, maybe a little confused about the capabilities of pawns getting to the other side, is going with the other pawn and now gets the queen. Okay. And takes a bishop and moves back. So, previously I said when you're up a lot of material, the goal should be to attack the enemy king and try not to take every single last piece your opponent has, because that increases the chances of stalemate. So this goes also for this position. As long as black has that bishop on the board, the black king can almost not be stalemated. So black's goal should be to lose that bishop as soon as possible, because that will increase the chances of stalemate. White's goal should be to use the two queens together and go after the black king. For example, queen there. I really like this move a lot. It gives up the bishop and white takes it. And now it's a 50-50. It will be stalemate or checkmate. It's going to be a tie or a white win, depending on whether this black king gets stalemated. Based on my experience, I would say the chance of stalemate are going up, because white is now moving to get a third queen, which will cover almost the whole board, and then it will just be a coin flip whether it's check or not. In a situation like this, the queens should start moving in with check every single turn, and actually in 3 moves it could be checkmate. Queen moves out to check, the king has to move over. The other queen moves to the g file, check, the king moves over, and then the first queen comes back. And the goal would be to have 2 queens covering these 2 files, and the black king somewhere on this h file. That is sort of the goal. Another way would be to bring the queen down here and the queen down there. But getting another queen is just going to increase the odds of stalemate. I just spotted that actually in Ngorge is only 26 seconds left, which in turn increases the odds of her losing on time greatly. And I think that she is going to lose on time. She has 3 moves to choose from, and for now it's not choosing any of them. And in 3, 2, 1, 0 seconds. She will not be allowed to make any choice. And white won by time out. Okay, what does that mean for the standings? Let's see. That means that not all standings are in there yet. So we'll wait with discussing the standings, and we'll take a look at the first game to finish, which was nighttime. No, this was not. Oh, it was nighttime against Ngozi. Hold on. No, this is not the game. I'll have to find the game. The game disappeared on me. So, next round, 12 minutes. Alright, let's pull up that game. I'll have to adjust my screen a little bit. Let's go to nighttime's games. I found them. Click on that game. See if I have to resize it for you guys. I do. Okay, let's do that. The layout of the board on chess.com changes, whether between actually looking up, finding games in the database that they have played and following them live. So that's why I have to resize the screen a little bit. Alright, that should be looking pretty good. Okay. And here we go. So this is a game between Chess Club Junior and Nighttime. They both on their first games. This is the second round. And Chess Club Junior started with pawn to e4. We discussed this moment briefly. This is the French opening. And this opening is very effective against any attempt by white to try to use the queen and bishop to go after this f7 weak spot. Mostly because it will block any attack of a bishop on this diagonal. Instead, black actually now is the first one to get an attack on white's weak spot. Although black would need more pieces to attack before the f-pawn can be taken. White develops the bishop and castles. I like that a lot. Knight moves out and attacks the pawn. I like that a lot as well. And here white should actually protect this pawn. Knight c3 would be a good move. Rook e1 would be a decent move. I also like moving the pawn out to d4 first, chasing that bishop, and then protecting the pawn. White moved the knight back, which is a bit mysterious. Why white wanted to do that. When the knight is on the edge of the board, like this, it is looking at 4 squares. And compared to where it was looking at 8 squares. So basically by retreating the knight to the back row, white is decreasing the ability or activity of the knight by 50%, by half, going from 8 to 4. So I'm wondering what the idea was to put the knight there. Maybe the knight wants to come out here and attack this bishop. It's possible. Let's see. Black decided not to take the pawn on e4. That's understandable as well, since his king was still on this e-file. And white does indeed move that bishop knight to d3. He just wants to eliminate this bishop. That must be the idea. He knows the danger of that bishop aiming at that pawn. And he figures, let's go after him. And black says, okay, we can do that, but at least I take a pawn in the middle. The pieces get traded. And white's king is quite safe, but black is up a pawn. Now in this position I would have considered taking back with the knight, because pawns are not that great when they are in front of each other, pawns of the same color. So when this d-pawn recaptures, these two pawns are now on the same file. And essentially this pawn in front on c5 is blocking the advance of the pawn on c7. In chess this is called doubled pawns. These pawns are doubled on a file, and that sort of weakens them as a duo because they can't really help each other. At best they're, well, at worst they're hurting each other. So that's also not something that's easily undone, because pawns can only move to another file when they capture something. So now basically black needs to capture something before those pawns can get undoubled. So from a long-term perspective, I prefer to take back with the knight. Queen f3, good move, attacking the knight. The knight moves away, attacking the queen. The queen moves away from the attack of the knight. The pawn moves out, attacking the queen with the bishop, and this is the one that white missed. Discovered attack, very common tactic and a very common way to lose things. Especially when you're playing with real pieces on a real board, and let's say your opponent is as real, but he's sitting right across from you. Whatever pawn or piece gets touched and moved is the one that you're focused on most. I guess on chess.com it's sort of the same. You see this pawn move, and you're first of all focused on what that pawn is doing. Right now the pawn is protecting these squares. It moves up, you look at the pawn, and you see, aha, now it's attacking these squares. And it's not immediately clear that when that pawn moves up, it actually opens, in this case, a diagonal for the bishop. So white now has to move the queen away to safety. There's not that many, well, there's a few. I would probably just bring it back to e2, where it's pretty safe. White missed that. Played a good developing move, opening up the diagonal for his bishop. But after the bishop took the queen, white's position pretty much collapsed. Because now without a queen, there could be big trouble. White did take this, and the queen takes back, and now this white king, even though it's castled, is in big trouble. Because this queen is lining up on this file. If this bishop moves out to one of these squares, it will put a lot of pressure on this g2 pawn, the main shield in front of the king, and it's very difficult to defend that. White moved knight d2, which could have been taken. Black probably very satisfied with the fact that he just took a queen, didn't see or bother with that knight anymore, and developed his own knight. The idea I really like. The knight is ready to come into the position and join the attack on the white king. Knight e4, attacking the queen. Queen goes back. f3, and now black does play that move, threatening mate. He plays bishop h3, which attacks this pawn with two pieces, only one protector. So black is threatening to checkmate on g2. Note that the pawn cannot take the bishop, because the pawn is pinned by the queen to the king. White now needs to defend the g-pawn. He did not, and that allowed checkmate on the next turn. There are a few ways to defend this. So let's first think about protection. This pawn actually can be protected again. The rook could move up and protect the pawn like this, which would defend against checkmate. And okay, black is in very good shape because black is up a queen, but it's not ending in one move. So protection works. Let's see if we can move the pawn away. The pawn could move up, where it's protected by the pawn and the knight, so it's safe from the queen. It would give black an option to, if this pawn moves up, to take that rook with his bishop. So good for the king, not so great for the white rook. Can we block? Yes, we can. We can also move this knight down to g3, where it is protected by the white pawn, and block the attack of the queen. The other nice thing, when the knight moves back, this pawn is now unpinned because the queen is no longer hitting it, and white is actually threatening to take that bishop. So if the knight moves back, the bishop would have to retreat somewhere, because otherwise it gets taken. I would think knight g3 is probably the best move. White did not, and then got checkmated on G2. There probably have been like somewhere like a billion chess players that have been checkmated on G2 in their lives. I'm one of them, and I'm guessing I've been checkmated there. Well, if it would be 1,000 times, it would not surprise me. Um, Mostly because I played a lot of games, but also because it's just a very typical place to get checkmated. In the starting position, the weak spots for the king are f2 and g2. When they castle, then the weak spots move often to h7 and h2, sometimes g2 and g7. And in this game, g2 was the one where black managed to come in. Very good game. Basically, it was just a one move deal. After queen g4, black used this discovered attack of the bishop on the queen to try to get the queen, and white missed it, and that was it. Let's go back to the tournament. Are they playing yet? I believe they are not. Well, that should give me a chance to resize the screen again. Because on chess.com the board moves around all over the place depending on what you are doing. And now I'm going back to following games live. That means that the board will find a new place on my screen. And I will have to resize it here. Okay. I'm going to change the standings a little bit to make it... Oh no, I don't have to actually. I can make it cumulative, but I don't have to. We can see that Nighttime has won 2 games and is in the lead. Chess Club Junior and Davy and Miranda have won 1 game each. And Ngozi Hibbert has so far lost both games. The next round will start fairly soon, probably in about a minute. Let's see. Not yet. Okay, gives me a moment to drink something. See if I'm getting any messages about problems with the live stream. I hope they're not. I'm not getting any messages about it, so looks like you should still be able to follow me just fine. And let's take a look. Yep, they have just started. So, let's start with this game. Nighttime, playing with white, has won both his games against Davy and Miranda, who won 1 game. And we are seeing some very familiar themes, namely the weak spots are getting targeted immediately. Both players are following the same, but since white begins, white is the first one to get to take with check. Alright, so this king now has to move away. He can choose one or the other. And now white has to deal with the fact that black is trying to do the same thing. Actually, I might have preferred to take with the knight instead of the bishop. So castling is a very good move for the defense of this f-pawn. The problem is that when a knight protects something, it is usually not a great situation because knights can easily be harassed. So, okay, black takes his pawn that has super protection, so that's not going to work. What black could do is harass the knight. So when black attacks the knight has to give up the protection of the bishop, or the knight is lost. So after pawn to d6, there could be some trouble for one of white's pieces. Which is why in this position, I usually prefer to take with a knight, where a bishop backs up that knight. Now, this game seems to be going south for black very quickly. Black lost a piece. After d5, already there's an option to skewer the king and queen. White did not see that, retreated his bishop. Black took a pawn, that's protected. And after rook f8, white did actually see the skewer. But black had just moved the rook and did play the only move to save his queen. If the black king moves away, hold on, where can it move away? Well, I guess it can move up. Then this queen can be taken. So by putting the rook there, the rook is blocking the attack of the bishop on the king. The rook has protection, but it's also pinned. It cannot move. So white's next move I like a lot. Queen e1. The queen now lines up with the knight and the king, which gives this knight to move anywhere on the next turn and check the king. Now, if I'm black, I would be trying to get out of that as soon as possible. I'm not sure where. f8 maybe. Black doesn't, and now white is trying to use this discovery. First attempt is moving the knight here. It's a double check. Queen knight. But after king f7, there's not really much to take with this knight, so white moves it back. And black is so kind to set up the same trick again. The one that actually does win something is knight to c6, where you attack the queen and check at the same time. White moves bishop f7. Okay. If the rook takes, then you can take the queen. King moves back. Obviously white is in great shape. White is up 2 pieces. The black king is in big danger, and now white does find that move that we're talking about, the discovered attack with the knight attacking the queen. Right now it's also attacking the king, so it's a double discovered check, winning the queen. Knight takes queen check. This black king is in great and grave danger. It probably should move up the board now, which it does, because now there's not an immediate way to attack the king. Well, I would probably just take the rook, and then I would try to get the queen and rook to attack that king. Actually, there is an immediate way to attack the king, which is what should probably happen on the next turn. Like now, queen e8 would be big trouble for the black king. The black king is now being defended by 2 pawns, and it's being attacked by 9, plus 5 is 14, maybe the knight, 17. So 17 points in the attack, 2 in the defense. That's bad news. And checkmate should be just 1 or 2 moves away. Queen check is also good. The queen is attacking the pawn together with the rook, so any move this rook can get into action. I don't think white has just spotted yet that the square f7 is also available. Rook f6 is very good. Rook f8 is mate. And it was played. Well, convincing win by nighttime. He seems to be cruising to another victory on the Sunday morning chess tournament cycle. Let's move to the other game. The other game is Chess Club Junior with white, who has won 1 game, lost 1 against Ngozi Hibbert, who lost both games. Let's see what is going on. Well, there's a lot going on here. First of all, I see white's queen is gone. But I also see black's queen is attacked by no less than 2 pieces. For now, though, the white king is in check. So, it should move up, as it does. And now the question is, when does white see? Well, there it is. White saw it. Queen gets taken by the rook. Now might be a good time to actually count material. I see black is still up a bishop and a knight. Which is good, but it's also the only 2 pieces that have some ability where they are now. The others are very limited in ability, and especially the rooks have almost 0 ability. So from that perspective, I really like this bishop d6 move. I like rook e1 as an idea to move up to this file with the king, but the knight could take the rook. Missed that chance. Now the rook is a real menace. The king has to probably just move over. Blocking doesn't look very appetizing. If you block with one bishop, I can take it. If you block with the other bishop, I can also take it. So king d8 is really the only decent move played by black. Okay, rook e7, nice idea, but it's protected, and black does see that as well. Okay, white should regroup, lost 5 points. That rook could have taken the bishop, doesn't move to another square where a bishop could take it. But the other bishop comes in first, checks, it's almost checkmate, the king can still move up. And it's close to a checkmate, except that white might still be able to defend. I like that move a lot. Rook f3 would leave that king with very few options to escape. There's still this square available, but well, there it goes. Isn't there a checkmate here anytime soon? Bishop there looked interesting. This rook move, I like the idea, but watch out. Bishop could take it. If the bishop doesn't take it, we're getting awfully close to checkmate. Not quite there yet. I mean, it's even though the black queen is gone, the white king still is in great danger here. But you see, even with all those pieces in the attack, 2 bishops, a knight and a rook, it's not easy at all to trap this king, even though it's in the middle of the board. It just keeps moving, and it will keep moving. And in the meantime, black has to be careful, because white is ready to take that rook on. Well, not anymore. Good move. Just get that pawn out of the board. Okay, the black king should be pretty safe now, because there's just not enough white pieces to really go after it. The white king should still be in grave danger. I really like that rook d8 move. Covering the d file. This should be very close to checkmate now. Okay, rook takes d5 is an option, which is checkmate. Alright, checkmate alert. Close. Wins the bishop, but takes with the pawn, which is not checkmate. Doesn't mean that checkmate is not too far away, because it is not. Because with all these pieces in the attack, it's just too many points. Now white does find a way to attack the black king. Check, the king moves over. I would just move back and check again. Alright, that c3 move, okay. Rook d5 mate is threatened again. d4 is very strong. If black actually finds rook d5 mate, rook e1 mate is another option. These are not that easy to see, because they just, if you look at all these pieces, they're all taking away escape squares for the white king. And if you check, you will probably mate. That's sort of the situation now. Black has 6 minutes. It's the better you get at chess, the more important time management becomes. Time management meaning, well, how much time do you use for your moves? In the tournaments I used to play in most, each player would get about 3 hours per player for the whole game, which would often mean that you could spend on average about 3 minutes per move thinking, and sometimes you would take up to a half an hour, or I mean in rare situations it could be an hour even, just for one move. But that would sometimes also mean you would have to make, for example, 10 moves in a minute. Now this is game in 10, so 10 minutes for the whole game. Most games last an average of about 30 to 40 moves. As players get better, it goes up a little bit. And, well, there's the check and there is the mate. it was quite an impressive game by Ngozi, I have to say. After losing 2 games, she made a very good comeback. And the one thing she did extremely well in this game was activating all her pieces. If you look at all of Black's bigger pieces, so not counting pawns, they are all playing some sort of a part in this checkmate. Well, maybe not all right now. Let's see. Well, the knight is checking. So the knight is a checkmating piece. The king cannot go to this square because we have a king, a knight, and the rook covering that square. So good protection there. The king cannot go to this square because the knight and the rook are guarding that square. The king cannot go down because this one knight is guarding this square. The king cannot capture the knight because the pawn, bishop, and rook are protecting that knight. The king cannot move over because the bishop and the rook are protecting that square. The king cannot move here because this bishop and the rook are protecting that square. So basically, all of these pieces are playing a role in this checkmate. Now, some of them are doing the same job, but they're all actively involved in trapping this king in the middle of the board. Now, if you look at the position, I have highlighted every single thing Black has except the 2 pawns on the rook files. They're not playing a role in this game, but other than that, everyone is. And well, it's sort of it makes me very happy when I see a situation where all the pieces are in harmony with each other, working together. That is just something that I like to strive for in every single game I play. So extremely nice effort by Ngozi here. Let's see if the standings have been updated. They have, which leads to a very interesting total. Namely, Nighttime has won all 3 games and is in first place. But the other players have each won 1 game and are sharing second place. I'm not sure what's going to happen next. Let me try to figure that out. Alright, I'm getting some messages. Let me ask, is there a playoff for second place, or how does this work? Usually there's a semi-final followed by a final, but depending on the number of participants, sometimes the format gets adjusted. In this case, let's see what happens. Let's see if there's somebody games going. Not yet. I'll leave this pretty picture of the 2, 4, 6, 8 black piece involved checkmate on the board. Might take a while before that game starts. I'm in communication with the tournament director. He's trying to keep me apprised from what's going on. Semi-final will start at 10:30, and the next question is who is playing who in the semi-final. Let me ask that. Pairings for the semis. Daniel Zhao, a high school player, is the tournament director. He's also a very strong chess player, one of the top high schools players in the state, and close to the top 100 in the country for his age. Apparently also pretty good at making pairings and running a chess tournament. He's been doing that for a few weeks now. he also happens to be my private chess student. It's been many, many years since we started. I remember his rating was about 1100 when we started working. He's now closing into 2000, not quite there yet. Also, there have been very little chances to play chess in person this past year. There are still a few tournaments being held in Connecticut if you want in-person chess. Every Saturday in Norwalk at the Chess Club of Fairfield County, there's a tournament with 3 rounds. And the New Britain Chess Club is meeting every Tuesday in person. They stopped doing that for a little while, but they restarted it recently. Where else? There was actually a first real tournament in at Yale yesterday. I have not seen the results of that yet. I'm expecting there will be another one like that pretty soon. There's also the Playmore Chess Academy in Hamden, where regular chess activities take place. Am I missing any other? I don't think so. So if you want to play in-person chess, there are still possibilities. There have been for a while, and they will probably increase in availability as we go along, and hopefully the pandemic will disappear slowly but surely, at least in this region. Okay, I'm getting word that here are the pairings for the semifinals. I'll have to adjust my screen to show it to you. Move that up, move this down. So here are the pairings for the semifinals, which will start at 10:30. It's 10:20 now. Where we are in Hartford, Connecticut, and the semifinals night time. Will play against Chess Club Junior, and Davian Miranda will play against Ngozi Hibbert. The winner of each of those matches will play against each other. There will also be a match for 3rd and 4th place. And let's see. I'm not sure yet how many games they'll play. How many games? And then we'll all be up to date. Okay, they will play 1 game in the semi-final and 2 in the final. And then what will be the time control? And that will exhaust all of my questions. 10 minutes. Alright, so they're going to continue to play a game in 10. The semi-final will consist out of 1 game. Then in the final, for first place and the playoff for 3rd and 4th place, they'll play 2 games each. And if they tied after 2 games, they'll play a blitz playoff to decide the winner of Sunday morning's Hartford Public Library chess tournament being played on chess.com. This is, I believe, the fifth iteration of this event. It takes place every Sunday morning, and it is between students from Hartford public high schools who have been involved in a chess program for, I believe, we're up to about 6-7 weeks now. Most of them just learned how to play chess at the beginning of the program. They're getting instruction from myself and Sean Parker on a weekly basis. In fact, Sean has classes 3 days a week, and I have one class on Saturdays. Then on Sundays they play a tournament, and I get to commentate on those games, which has been a lot of fun. I can see those players improve as we go along. It's especially pleasing when, if I talk about a subject on Saturday and then I see them applying things that they learned the next day. It's quite impressive. Chess is, well, it's an easy game in some ways. It's a difficult game in others. Basically, it's a game where you will never stop learning. Even if you're the world champion, the game will still have a lot of mysteries about it, and the number of games that you can play before you'll play the same one, basically it's endless. Let's take a look. For example, we can take a quick peek on a Grandmaster game. There's Grandmasters playing chess all the time online, and I see actually quite an interesting game on chess.com right now being played. Is a game between Linda Krumina, who I don't know. She's from Latvia, based on the flag behind her name. She's a women's FIDE master, which puts her rating around 2200. And her opponent is a famous female player from Sweden, Pia Kramling. She has been around the world of chess decades and decades and decades. She has played not a World Championships match, but she's been at the top of women's chess for a very long time. She has a daughter who I believe is now a prominent chess streamer, a much better chess streamer than I am, that's for sure. And she is apparently playing a game. I'm not even sure if this game is being played on chess.com or what the venue is. It seems to be sort of an official game. Game 15. And there's not much time left, and there's still a lot of pieces on the board. So we're doing this while we're waiting for the tournament the semis to start in about 3 minutes. I'll keep an eye out for that. This game is very interesting. One thing is extremely odd. What is this rook doing on h4? It's not a typical place for the rook at all. It's attacking this pawn, but it's protected by the king. I see white has lined up queen and bishop on this diagonal, so I think white was ready to sack on g6, but black just prevented that. And that makes this rook look a little silly, because it's almost trapped, and if it's not doing anything good there, then it's just not a good space. The rook really belongs on the d file, on d1 in particular, and battle with the black rook. So this is the sort of the critical theme in this game, is how bad or good this rook on h4 is placed. I think it's placed extremely poorly. The best thing it does is that if the bishop takes the knight, the rook can recapture. Then the rook would be great, but other than that, the rook is in poor shape here. The only question is, how does black try to use the misplacement of the rook? I'm not entirely sure how to do that. I mean, one way would be move this pawn up to f5 and create a possibility of attacking with the bishop. The thing for black is that black is not really in any rush. White can almost do nothing in this position to help this rook. This rook cannot come back to this open file because the black pawn is guarding that square. So white is sort of playing a waiting game, hoping that nothing bad will happen to the rook. Well, I don't think that is going to work for too much longer. White is moving back and forth between those squares. Rook c8. Is black ready to take this pawn? I think black is ready to take that pawn. When the pawn recaptures, then the bishop takes the knight. You have to be a little bit careful, because when the rook takes and the queen takes, this bishop moves to this diagonal and skewers the king and queen. So for now, white is fine on this square. This king is on this diagonal, which is a little unpleasant. If you move it to here, then you're moving into the file of the rook, also not completely comfortable. So I'm not sure if actually there's any tricks. There's the move f5. Yeah, that's the move I was sort of expecting. Taking away another square for the rook. And black might consider, hold on. Doesn't g5 just trap that rook? Okay. There might have been some sort of a trick still, I don't know. g5 looks like that rook is running out of space. f5 is hanging, but g5, queen takes pawn, pawn takes rook. Okay. Rook, bishop f6. Well, that might work as well, though I'm not that eager to take this rook with that bishop. This bishop is a beautiful piece. It's a great helper of the king. And when that bishop moves away, this pawn on e5 becomes... So I don't think bishop takes rook is my biggest worry if I would be white. I would be very worried about some idea with the pawn attacking the rook. Right now, it might not work so well, because this rook has access to the 6th rank now, because the bishop is no longer attacking that. I would just put it back and play g5. I'm not sure what the problem is. Okay, rook d5. Okay, protecting this. Maybe what black is just, you have almost no time left. And let's see how many moves you can make without doing anything. So far white is doing pretty okay with that. Moving the king back and forth. And I still don't really see the issue with bishop there and pawn here. But let's see. Okay, now there are some greater threats. And I don't see an issue with that for black. Looks like bishop takes rook is now incoming. What, e4? Last attempt. Just attack the rook, see what happens. Yep, there it is. That shouldn't really work. Let's see. Alright, we're going back to our tournament. They just started. And we are following. The second game hasn't started yet. So we'll start with night time with white against Chess Club Junior. With just a few moves in. And I see a whole different approach. That's interesting. I don't think I've seen nighttime or any of the players open with the knight to c3 yet. This opening move also has a name, the Van Geet opening. Van Geet is a Dutch player, so I have no trouble pronouncing that. Van Geet is how people from the south of the Netherlands say Van Geet. If you're from the north, you say Van Geet or something. Van Geet. It's the G is a difficult letter to pronounce. Anyways, that's this opening because a player named Van Geet, a Dutch player, a pretty strong player, played that a lot. Black played knight c6 and white now played a fianchetto on the queen side. Fianchetto is Italian for flank. Fianchetto is when a bishop develops to the flank being the left side of the board or the queen side. A very popular way, not that typical, but actually it's gained quite a bit of popularity. I believe Hikaru Nakamura, one of US's best chess players for the last decade and a half or so, has been a big proponent of this development. And I like seeing nighttime play around with different openings. Black played well so far. He developed two knights, a bishop, and the queen comes out, and white is going to castle queenside. That's a novelty as well. And black plays bishop a6. The idea is good, attack the queen. The problem is the bishop has no protection. So that didn't go so well for that bishop. Black tries again, attacking with the knight, and the queen moves back to safety. Okay, queen c8. Good move. Queen f3. That's a sneaky little way to try to get that rook. And black was aware of that and played knight c6. Good move. Pawn to e3. Rook b8. Okay, knight e2. b5. I like this a lot. Even though white won a whole piece, this game is still full of possibilities. So when kings are castled on opposite wings, white is castled on the queen side, black king on the king side, and there's queens on the board, you can use your pawns to try to storm the enemy fortress, so to speak. For example, white can use all these pawns to try to go at this shield of pawns in front of black's king without hurting the safety of his own king. So even though these pawns move, the white king is hiding on the other side of the board. The same goes for black. The black king is on the king side, and he can use all these pawns to try to go at white's shield here. And you should do that. Whoever gets there first usually is the one that has the biggest chance to go at the enemy king. I sort of like before, if I would be black, I would be looking hard at just sacking a piece to remove those pawns. Rook b6, okay, d5, I like that. Starts an attack in the center. I like that move as well, attacks the queen. The queen should move. I like that move as well. The queen cannot be attacked here. It's taking a first look at this weak spot on h7. Rook a6, okay. I really like Chess Club's ideas to try to use the rook to aim at this pawn. The problem is that, no, actually it's maybe not that much a problem. If this knight comes to c4, then this pawn is simply gone, or almost gone. So actually, quite an interesting idea. D takes e6, black recaptures, very good. The knight comes to f4, okay. Knight c4, I like that a lot. Attacking this pawn together with the rook, and I also like white's response, getting rid of that knight. So apart from this one move where white could just take a piece for free and did, this game has been extremely interesting. And let's see, knight to b5. Well, one thing it does, it opens this diagonal. I'm not sure yet if it will do anything more. The knight gets kicked and white takes the knight on f6. I'm a little nervous about that move, because this bishop takes back, gets a clear look into white's position. The bishop on b2 is no longer helping the pawn on a3. So this knight has to move away, then the rook can take the pawn, and this king could be in trouble. g4. Well, that is a good plan. Right now, though, this knight is hanging. And if black would have taken that, I would have been very worried about white's king, because the rook will come in next. Then if you can move your bishop here, you'll actually create a mating net on the bottom rank. So rook a3 is a very good idea, but the knight takes it. Queen a6 is a very good follow-up. However, attacking this knight, the white king is not out of danger. e4, that is an extremely clever move. This is the best move of the day. White opens up the defense of the queen on the knight, and that is great help to the white king. I hadn't seen this move, I hadn't spotted that possibility. This queen seems completely out of the defense of white's king, but with this one move, he involves this king into the defense, and Equally impressive, black actually saw this, and he did not take the knight. He played bishop e5. Very good. The white queen moves here. Now black could take this knight and then take the other one, but his move I might even like better. He's cutting the defense of this queen to the knight by putting the pawn in between, and the pawn is protection. This puts a lot of pressure on white. Black is threatening to mate in 2 moves. I think there's only one move for white. I think there's only one defense for white in this position. I've not seen almost any game by nighttime in the past 5 weeks where he was down to one single defense to escape disaster. He's got 4 minutes to figure that out. Well, probably a little less. Otherwise, you will have no time to figure anything else out anymore. And he doesn't. Queen takes a3 would lead to mate if black also finds queen b2. That is the big question. Will black find that move? There's also a couple other moves that might be good, because actually there's just no escaping for white from that mate. It would take 2 moves to involve a defender. So black has a few chances now to... very close. He picked the wrong square. Uh-oh. That is the end of that. This was a 1-move game. If black moves queen b2, the pawn is supporting the queen and it's checkmate. b3 is almost checkmate, except the white pawn can take it. That is a bit of a gut-wrenching development from black's point of view. He played a great game. He's trying to reiterate it, but now actually he walks into a maiden 2 by white on the back rank. Not the easiest mate, a very typical one. Let's see if nighttime he finds it. Alright, this game, yeah, what can I say? It's one of the best games I've seen in the past 5 weeks. With one big turnaround. Yeah, chess is a harsh game sometimes. You can play a great game and in 1 move everything gets ruined. And I think nighttime is probably very, 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 very relieved he got away with that. I'm guessing he did see he could have been mated in 1 turn. In the meantime, the other game has ended. I will have to look it up to show you what happened. So, nighttime did win this game. A few moves before he could have been mated in 1. Black was very close, moved the queen almost to the right square, and it was taken. Okay. I have to find the other game, which was won by Ngozi, who's on a streak. She won the last game she played as well. And let's see if I can find that game. It's not in my list, so I have to resize the screen again. And I have to manually find the game. Let's go to... Is she still online? I don't see it there. Okay. Here is her account. Here are the games. Click on the game. Resize the screen. Let's bring this back to the beginning. It was a very, very short game. And resize it for you guys. And there we go. Okay. Let's take a look. Then Ngozi is white. Davian is black. And, well, look at that. We just saw a Van Gate opening with 1 knight c3. And now we see 1 c4. This one is a bit easier to pronounce, the name of this opening. All you have to B is able to say the word English. This is the English opening. This starting move was first popularized hundreds of years ago in Great Britain, in England, and the chess scene was taking place mostly in big cities back then, big European cities, starting with northern Italy, then Paris became a hotspot, London was another one, Vienna, and my guess is that this opening move was first played in chess tournaments or chess games in London, and therefore called the English. It's a very good opening. It's one of the most popular openings nowadays. It's gained a lot of popularity in the last 10-15 years or so among professional players. And the main idea is to use this pawn on the flank to attack a square in the center. And you also open up this diagonal for the queen. Not that you can use it yet, but could be useful in the future. Black played the exact same opening move, namely pawn to c5, and this would be called the symmetrical English, because both players are copying their moves as if there's a mirror right between the 4th and the 5th rank in the middle of the board. And knight c3 is a very good move. This is the typical way to follow up. The knight is attacking squares in the middle of the board as well, and black does the same thing. White moves out the other knight, black does as well, and white moves pawn to d4. Well, you could find thousands and thousands and thousands of games between masters starting exactly like this, and black just keeps copying. It's still probably okay. More typical would be for white to now, or for black to capture. The knight takes back, and then black usually plays a move like g6 to develop the bishop like this. There's now starting to be a lot of tension on the board, and it looks like, I can see the notation, they were playing some sort of a copycat chess. Now, this is very typical for chess players who just start out. At some point, you will get the idea, well, what if I just copy my opponent's move? I mean, how bad can it be? Well, it isn't necessarily bad for quite a while. And at some point, it becomes very bad, because basically, let's say the move before you checkmate your opponent, you get checkmated. After your opponent checkmates you, there's no more copycat. It's just the end of the game. So in a nutshell, that is why that strategy is okay up to some degree, but at some point it just doesn't work anymore. So far, it's okay. White takes the pawn, attacks the knight. Black does the same thing. And white plays, well, these knights should be moving, or the pawn should be captured to save the knights. But that's not what happens, and white plays pawn to e3, and black copies the move. White takes the knight, and black copies the move. For example, the copycat game would come to an abrupt end if white would take the queen, and there's no copying that move. The black king will have to take back. It's actually okay for both sides. So white's move is, I like that a lot. This is going to put a brutal end to copycat game very quickly. Either black takes with check and the king takes back, or black continues to copy that game, and now he can no longer do that because it's check. It's a discovered attack. The pawn moves up, opens the diagonal for the bishop to the king, and the pawn attacks the queen. So actually, from being okay in this copycat game, in one move, everything black's position just got fire and combusted in one move. Now you'll have to get out of check. While the best move might be to move the queen up and give up the queen for the bishop. King e7 was played, and actually white should now take the queen with the pawn, turn it into a queen, forcing black to recapture with the rook, and then you should move this queen away, I suppose. Actually, it's not all that easy. Still very tricky, because there's this same threat coming to the white king. It's not just moving the pawn up to attack the queen, it's also capturing this pawn with check, and then taking the rook, turning it into a queen. So really, what is going on here? Who is better and why? Okay. I think the best way for white to play is to take. The rook takes back. And then to just take that rook with the queen, check. The king takes back. And then step this king out of this diagonal of the bishop. Once that happens, this bishop can no longer check. And if the pawn takes the pawn, you recapture. And you will have won a rook. White will be up a rook. After double take on d8, get the king out of the diagonal, and white is up a rook. Now, there's a very small path to a good position where there's still a lot of play left, because there's no queens. White will probably need to queen a pawn before you can win. Same goes for black. And anything else might just not be that easy. Maybe takes, rook takes, queen b3, pawn takes check, queen takes, bishop check. Okay, that's it. That is the best continuation. Well, it took me a while to find it. a3 is not a bad idea, although it gives black a chance to now get out of trouble. Actually, after c2, black might be the one winning a rook, because then king e2 takes, and black is up a rook. Okay, copycat game resumes with a6, resumes, e4. Both players for now are just ignoring the fact that the pawn can take the queen. And now for some reason black stops the copycat game. While the rooks are attacking each other, the queens are attacking each other. It's like the house is completely on fire. The fire department is far away, because this is not going to be extinguished anytime soon. And well, after king e8, the queen was finally taken with checkmate. Well, that worked out nicely for white. It's almost like white was waiting for black to... White didn't want to capture or win a rook or a queen. White was just waiting for black to make a move where it's checkmate. Well, quite an entertaining game. The copycat method could have worked out well for both sides. For white first and then for black. But it was white who eventually pulled that one through. So, let's see it. The standings have not... Oh, it's getting updated as we speak. And I believe the final will start in 9 minutes. Where nighttime will play against Ningozi. I think the idea is that they play 2 games. One, they switch colors. And I have to resize my screen again. Okay, there we go. And then I have to log in again. I got logged out. Thank you, chess.com. Let's go back to live chess. Okay, let's look up the players. They're not right there right now. So I can get my screen sized correctly again. I'll just look up some games being played as we speak. I see a bunch of Grandmasters active. I'm just clicking on 2 of those games so my screen gets sized correctly for the final, which will start in 8 minutes. Let's see if I can. Okay. Resize. The standings screen. To show you the battle for first through fourth place. Okay. I'm adding to indicate who's playing for what. Let's see, what does this look like? Quick resize. And here we go. So the battle for first and second place will take place between Nighttime and Ngozi. The third and fourth place final will take place between Chess Club Junior and Davian Miranda. Let's see. We're not started yet. We should start in a couple of minutes. In the meantime, we have some ultra fast action on the board between two very high rated players, ending in a checkmate. Let's we have a couple minutes left. What is this game? This is a game between an IM from India and a GM from, what is this flag? Jordania? Let's see. The game was aborted. And restarted. Who are these players? Is this Salem? I believe it is. One of the best players from the Middle East. Yes, Salem Saleh. Very strong players from the United Arab Emirates. Extremely entertaining player as well. And he's playing against an IM who appears to be from India. What's his name? Mitaba Gua. Never heard of him. He looks fairly young. They're just playing a quick 1 minute bullet game, which means they have 1 minute for the whole game. And it also means that usually every move has to happen, well, in a second or less. At some point, each move will take less than 1/10 of a second. You could say, well, that's unbelievable. How is this possible? And I would say you're right, but it is possible. It's something I have done more times in my life than I'm happy to admit to. and still do on a daily basis. And the level of these games can be extremely high. These are very strong players who see most, if not all, one-move attacks instantly. And in this game, white is in good shape because he won a bunch of stuff on the left side, on the queen side. But this knight is out of play, and I'm a little afraid for white's king. And also, I'm a little afraid for Saleh's attacking powers. And I think he is probably going to do some damage. Well, the white king survived, but the black knight is still a very sad piece. And now it's coming back into the game. The black pawn, black is way ahead. Hold on, check, okay. G5, good move. These pawns are just too dangerous. Rook F1, Rook C1, very good. Queen, and black should win this game fairly easily. This white rook might be lost. I guess it survived. Actually, black messed that up a little bit, but with the queen on the board, he should still be able to flag white. Flag meaning winning on time. And there it is, black won. Okay, we should be starting our tournament very soon. I see the players are back online. And we'll start by following the battle for first place. And then if we have time, we'll look at the other one. Everything seems to be going all right. Nighttime is playing for his 4th tournament victory. If I'm not miscounting, or is it his 3rd? I'll have to keep track of that. He won the last one. And this one he seemed to be cruising as well. But then in the semi-final, he found fierce opposition by Chess Club Junior and was one move away from getting mated until he was not. And then suddenly he was the one mating. It was a close game. The final started. Nighttime has played pawn to e4 like he often does this time, and black plays pawn to f5. Well, that's a very risky move. It opens up this diagonal to the king, and it gives a pawn away for free. Oddly enough, this name still has an opening. It's called the Elephant Gambit. I don't know why it's called the Elephant Gambit. It's not the best gambit. Gambit is when you sacrifice a pawn on purpose in the opening. Effect, after pawn takes, black continues with g6 and just keeps giving pawns. In the game, Nighttime did not take. Okay. And black now developed the knight, attacks this pawn again, and white kicked the knight. Well, this knight doesn't have a lot of safe squares. This is one of them. This is one of them, and this is one of them. And then it has two that are not safe, and Ngozi picked one that was not safe because the queen comes out and takes it. It's not mate, it's close. Black plays the only move, pawn block, and white retreats the queen all the way. I like that move. In fact, white is saying, okay, I took the knight, it's good for me. I don't have to keep my queen out in the middle of the board to try to get more. I'm just going to put it safe back on d1. Knight c6, and now white continues to develop. Pawn f4, pawn d4. I like white's play a lot so far. These pawns are right in the middle of the board, giving white a lot of space. Knight's developed, and the bishop opens up to the pawn. And yeah, this pawn is probably just going to be lost. Maybe bishop h6 is still possible. Even that would probably not really work. But black played d6. White took the pawn. Black took a pawn. White took a pawn. and attacks this rook. And black should probably take that as well or move the rook. Black did neither and lost the rook. Alright, this game is going sideways for black now. White is up a rook and a knight. And white should now start looking for ways to go after black's king. Pawn g4, all things considered, not a bad move, attacking the knight. And white ignored it. That's interesting. I don't know if there's really a reason to ignore it. I guess it doesn't. White is still in great shape. I would probably just move the knight, but white moved the bishop, pinned, and the pawn took, and the queen took back, putting more pressure on that knight. Also looking at this weak spot on f7. a6, kicking the bishop takes, the pawn takes, the queen takes check, attacking the rook. Black blocks correctly. Now the queen is protecting the rook. White spots the protection, moves the queen back to this square, which is good. Black moves the rook out, attacks this pawn on b2. White protects, defends the pawn by moving it away. Very good. Rook b6, I like it a lot. Maybe this rook can come on the e-file. Well, very close. It came to attack the queen. One problem, the bishop can take backwards and take the rook. But kudos for the plan. Rook b8, b6, and trying to swing it over. Unfortunately, the right bishop can take it. And now this e-file opens up. No more pawns on there. And a right rook is using it to attack. King moves out. Queen moves out. Check. The king moves back. Queen moves check again. The king moves up. And okay, so far so good. One thing I will be looking at is getting this rook involved like this. And also when this rook on e1 moves up, it gives the possibility for the other rook to join the rook on the e-file. And that's what we call doubling rooks. Rook a1 is not a bad move either. I like that quite a bit as well. Maybe even that rook could be the one to swing over. Okay, pawn attacks queen. The queen moves back to f3 for the third or fourth time now. It's been taking on h5, retreated, took back on f3, took something on c6, retreated, checked on d5, retreated. So this queen has quite a journey and did quite well. And after h5, it takes again on h5. f5, and now comes the rook swing. Very good. This black king is soon going to be in very, very big trouble. There's no more pawn shield really of any kind. f4, good move. Because now rook check is pawn takes. And if rook goes all the way to h3 to battery with the queen, this bishop can take it. So probably this rook should come up and try to enter the g-file like that. Okay, so you can say, you know, a lot of pieces get given away. Well, in this case by black. But black still shows quite a few nice ideas. The rook swing to try to help. Okay, the rook got taken, but the idea was correct. The pawn moving up, attacking the rook. Good idea. Alright, so now this is getting attacked, and black should maybe look into protecting that pawn with the queen or the bishop. Because this pawn is a little bit helpful now, helping the king. Mostly because it protects this g3 square from where the right rook would like to attack this king. Okay, white will probably take it. Or maybe bring the other rook. Maybe bring the knight. Any move to bring these other pieces towards black's king will put black in a lot of trouble. This is a good move. Now there's a mate in 2 alert. Rook up to f7. The king has to come down, and the queen joins with the rook on the 7th rank to deliver checkmate is the most immediate threat. It's not the easiest checkmating pattern, but it's one I think Nighttime is capable of finding based on his other games. Let's see if he does. And another question, does black find a way to defend? Black does not, moves this pawn, and now The question is, does Nighttime see the checkmate? I think Nighttime does see the checkmate. Very typical queen and rook checkmate against the king. Well, it's just one more move, and there it is. Yeah, just a very good effort by Nighttime. And Ngozi tried it, had some good ideas, but she could not withstand the pressure. The other game, in the meantime, appears to have finished. I will have to look that one up and do the usual resizing of the screen. Okay, it was Davian against... It looks like they did not play. I do not see their game. Let's see if it's in Chess Club Juniors. Maybe it is. No, it's not. Okay, let me try to find out if that game was played, or if it will still be played, or if it will not be played. I'm getting challenged by someone with an awfully Dutch name. I will have to decline that challenge. Okay. Technical. For some reason, they couldn't play each other. They might still try to get that game going. I'm going to take a quick break and I'll be right back. As soon as there's another game going, I'll be back and we'll follow that game along. Thank you. And we're back. I was informed that we're still trying to get the game for third and fourth place started. The second game of the final just took off. Ngozi is white, and we see a repeat of the English opening. And Nighttime does not play the copycat, let's say, strategy, and he plays pawn to e5. This is actually the most played response to the English opening. It's a good move. And knight c3 is a good move, and knight f6 is a good move, and knight f3 is a good move, and knight c6 is a good move. And this position, usually white decides to develop the bishop on the flank and then castle. Pawn to e4 is a bit less played, but you will still find a lot of games with this move. Leads to a very closed structure where the pawns are blocking each other. Black played bishop b4, which is a good move, and now I play d4, which I like. The only thing is, after e takes d4, white should recapture that pawn in the middle with the knight, and the knight could take, and the queen could take back. So white should try to regain that pawn. White did not. Played e5, so now as a response to the attack on the knight c3, white attacks knight f6, but the problem is after pawn takes and pawn takes, this pawn could move with check, either to c2 to win the queen, or the pawn could move to b2 with check to take on a1, take a rook and turn into a queen, and that would be very bad news for white. So this is a missed opportunity for black. Black's move is, the idea is quite nice. The knight is now joining the attack on the pinned piece, and that knight on c3 is in big trouble. Alright, knight bishop g5 actually defends the knight because there's a counter attack, but the problem is that bishop can be taken, and if the knight takes back, the queen can recapture. Knight h4, and the knight return to e4, attacking this knight and the other knight with the queen. The knight moves back, and here we go. D takes c3, setting up a discovery and attacking this rook. c2 would also have been a good move. After king e2, well, you could take this and the queen takes back, but there's even a better move. Knight c3 with a fork. Looks like black is playing another impressive game. King e3, knight takes d1. Okay, so the rook moves away from the attack, but this pawn on b2 stays alive, and only the rook is the one that's now stopping it from turning into a queen. So, okay, black has won a whole bunch of material, and now he just castled. I really like that. Maybe he's thinking about getting this rook involved as well. If black manages to get all his pieces involved, he doesn't really have to, but if he does, the white king will not be able to sustain that kind of pressure. There's just not enough pieces and points available to defend white's king. Okay, knight takes e5 is fine. This file has now opened up. There's no more pawns on it, which means that black can use the rook and or the queen to target the white king on that file. Alright, queen check is pretty good. It's attacking the king moves up to protect. Alright, d5 move, d5 check is a very good move. Rook e8 is a very good move as well. It's setting up a discovery with this black knight moving away, opening up the file of the rook on the king. And that's going to happen. The black knight takes the pawn with check, checks the king with the rook. The king now has to, let's see, it can go to 3 different squares. The knight could also block temporarily, but whatever white does, the black queen is most likely to take this knight with check and continue the attack from there. So I'm expecting queen takes knight check. The king has to go to c4, and mate should be very nearby. Queen c2 would be very close to mate. Rook e4, very close to mate. In fact, there has to be a mate somewhere. King can go still to e3, and then the queen moves to e4, checkmate. White queen e4 checkmate. Will black find that checkmate? Okay, no, but not a bad move either, because now you can get a second queen, and then after the king moves out, any queen to d3 would be checkmate again. Or this queen to e4 is also checkmate. Actually, knight d4 is not mate yet, because I have a... So there's a couple of checkmate in ones available to black on the next turn. Let's see if black finds one of them. Well, he finds a check, not a checkmate. Now the pawn can block or the king can move. Yeah, there's just no way white is going to survive, because stalemate is very far away. There's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other pieces for white. And white would need to lose all of them before there's any chance of a stalemate. Yeah, if black just keeps moving more pieces toward the white's king, then the checkmate will pretty much... I mean, black will just walk the white king into a checkmate. There's just no way that's not going to happen. If black mobilizes all his pieces, that will happen. I like that move a lot. And don't take the pawn, just give a check. Now you can take the pawn with check. There should be a mate in one for sure, in various ways. Knight d4 is made in one, or bishop g4. Okay, well, night time is the tournament victor once again. He had a very scary moment in the semi-final. He could have lost that as easily as he won against Chess Club Junior, but once he survived that, he won convincingly against Ngozi, who actually showed quite a bit of promise as well in the third round. She played a very good game, and in the semifinals she won in a very good game, but nighttime was just a little bit too strong still. And I just like Ngozi won with all the pieces participating. Here I also like that all of black's bigger pieces are some part of this checkmate. And the only piece who's done almost nothing is the black rook on a8. Well, I mean, it would be ready to deliver a checkmate as well. But black is just involving all of his pieces in the attack. And he does that consistently. So he wins a piece, he retreats, and then he develops more pieces to join the attack. And he does this throughout. And that often leads to big success, and it did as well in the final. Let me try to find out what's going on with the... Okay, I just got an update that one of the players had to leave, and the match for third and fourth place will not take place, which leaves just the final. Let's update that score. It just got updated. Thank you, Daniel. And there you see it. Nighttime 03 has won the Sunday morning chess tournament for Hartford High School players, organized by the Hartford Public Library, Boundless, and Team Dig USA. They've come together to provide chess instruction and chess tournaments for Hartford Public High School students, and this is, I believe, a 19-week program, and we're now into week 7 or 8. Still going strong. Let's see, we have looked at all the games. I will do a recap of the most important moment in the tournament for those who missed it. It was in the semi-final between Chess Club Junior and Nighttime 03. Let me go to Nighttime's games. and resize my screen. Bear with me for one more second. Okay, this is the final position. We just go back a few more moves to bring you to the critical moment. It was an extremely impressive end of the game. So in this position, both players have castled on opposite rings. Nighttime is playing white, Chess Club Junior is playing black, and White's queen is trying to aim at black's weak spot on h7 and is far away from the white king. And black's rook is trying to go after this a-pawn. And he started with the move c6, which is attacking this knight. And white should probably just retreat the knight to either d4 or c3. He could also play knight d6, and after bishop takes, rook takes. He played a very dangerous move. He took an f6, which removed the defender from his king. This bishop is now gone, and invited the black bishop to peer into white's position. And then he moved pawn to g4, allowing black to take this knight, and then this rook could come down and try to attack the white king as well. This was missed by black. Black took immediately and knight took back, but then brought his queen into the attack, attacking this knight. And white found this very impressive defense, opening up the third rank for the black queen, for the white queen to protect the knight. Black moved bishop e5, attacking this knight. The queen protected it, and then played a very strong move where he moves this pawn up and cuts the defense of the queen to the knight on the third rank. In this position, white has only one good move left to play this position. He has to bring back the knight to b1, away from the attack of the queen. Then the queen can come into a2, threatening queen b2, and then the knight can come out and take on c3. The position is still very unclear, because there might be still some good moves for black available, but white would be able to defend his king for the time being. Instead, white took some time, and he took actually a minute and a half to play queen d3. He's hoping to trade queens, but the problem is that now the black queen comes in with check. The king has to move over, and black has a mate in one available. Queen to b2, protected by the black pawn, would deliver a checkmate. He got very close. He played queen b3. Difference of one square was big because the pawn takes. And after rook b8, white saw that he could checkmate with queen d8 on the back row. The rook has to take. The white rook appears, and the black king gets checkmated behind his pawns. Very impressive game. I get word that maybe the players are playing some casual chess. We can take a quick look at that. I might have to resize my screen again, which I do. Okay, so players are just playing some games. Also game in 10. And Nighttime is playing with black. Davin is playing with white. We'll just follow along briefly. I can remove the standings. So it's just you, me, and the players remaining. It's looking like a fairly interesting game so far. It's even. Usually I would expect this knight to come to f3, so this knight must have gone like that, I suppose. Let's see, king's pawn to e4, king's pawn to e5, pawn to d3, bishop c5, targeting this weak spot. It's interesting to note, I believe Davian was not there yesterday for that lesson about the weak spots on f2 and f7. He might have been there last week when we also discussed it. White played c4, black played knight f6, and white played f4. Can be a pretty good idea, but you have to be very careful with this king, because now you open up this diagonal. And black took, white recaptured. Black just developed, starting ready to develop his bishop, which has happened. Aha, so now the knight came to f3. Yeah, in this position, probably white should use the other knight to go to f3. Knight c6, bishop, knight g5. That is going to work well for this black bishop, because it can take a queen. Okay, so what should white do? White should probably consider just moving this bishop out and breaking the pin of the black bishop on the knight and queen. So right now this bishop is pinning this knight to the white queen. The pin is when you have usually a bishop, a rook, or a queen, and they are lined up on a file, rank, or diagonal. In this case the bishop is on this diagonal, and there's a small piece in front. If you look at it from the perspective of the bishop sees a small piece in front, and behind that smaller piece is a bigger piece, namely the white queen. The knight is worth 3 and the queen is worth 9, so the queen is the bigger piece, which essentially means that this knight should not move away at all. If the knight moves, the bishop takes the queen. So that's what we call a pin. The knight is pinned by the bishop, and in order for that knight to be able to move again, something has to happen here. One good move would be to move the bishop there and put a smaller piece between the queen and the knight. At that point the knight could move again without losing points in a trade. In the game, that is what happened. The knight moved and the bishop took the queen, and now white is down 6 points. Okay, pretty clever move. The knight is attacking the bishop, which has no protection. The bishop is protecting the knight. So some pressure on white, and white, well, it's a counterattack. The problem is that black can just take the pawn, and I see in the game that already ended. Let's go from where we are. White did not protect the bishop. The knight took it, and then the queen came in as well. So now the forces, black's forces, are gathering around white's king. White has about 5 points plus 3. Maybe the pawn is another one. So at 9 points close to the king, but black already has 9, because it's very close to looking at this. It can also come on this diagonal, so 9 points. The knights are very nearby, so that's 6, and the bishop is also helping on this diagonal. So black has about 18 points close to white's king, and white only has 9 points defending. So black's attacking force is twice as strong, and that usually means trouble is on the horizon. This move, probably he's looking at going after this bishop on f1. Knight goes back to reveal the bishop attacking the rook. The pawn attacks the queen. Black takes. Okay, the only thing I would do is I would actually castle and check at the same time, just because you can. But rook d8 is a very good move, so it doesn't really matter that you didn't castle. The bishop blocks, the bishop takes the rook, the king moves, the rook comes in. Now it's just a matter of the queen joining the attack. Well, actually, no, you don't have to use the queen. It's just a rook checking and a knight protecting the escape square. Yeah, the moment black wants some pieces, especially the queen, the game didn't last too much longer. Let me just ask the tournament director a question. See what kind of response I get. They're not playing right now. The tournament has ended. Nighttime has won the event. And I'm just asking if there is going to be any other activity going on. And if there isn't, we'll sign off. And if there is, maybe we'll take a peek at that as well. Let's see. What the response will be, I'll be right back and let you know And we are back with a little bonus. Um, Nighttime or 3, the winner of the tournament, is playing a blitz game against the tournament director, Dick Coach Zhao, Daniel Zhao. He is one of the strongest high school players in the state, and close to the top 100 in the country, in the nation for his age. And it looks like they're playing an odds game where Deko Zhao is playing without queen and rooks. Well, who is going to be the favorite here? I'm not sure. I'm afraid I have to go against my private student, who Deko Zhao actually is. I know him very well, but I also know Nighttime 03 very well. I've never met Nighttime 03, but I've seen many of his games. And I think he might be pulling this one off. The big question is the time. Deko Zhao is extremely seasoned. He has a lot of experience playing chess and playing blitz chess. He's very resilient in defense. And he can play very quickly. You can see his rating on chess.com is 1893. And with all the pieces on the board, obviously he would be the big favorite to win this game. It would be a big surprise if he would not win this game. But with just the pieces left on the board that he has, I'm not seeing how he's going to do this. I'm not even seeing how I would do it. So that also means I have some trouble seeing how he would do it. I think Nighttime 03 is playing a very good game so far. In fact, he's already traded one set of bishops, because everything that's traded for white makes it harder, because at some point he'll be left with just a king and pawns, and he will have no defense whatsoever. I mean, I can see white is going to regain a bit of material now, but black can just give up the rook, and the queen comes in, and yeah, it will just be Pac-Man on the white ones. So, plus, once these three pieces in the corner are going to get into the game, things are going to get increasingly more difficult. Right now, okay, this queen move is not bad. The queen is attacking this pawn. Black can also simply start developing his other pieces. I mean, knight, rook, yeah, this is, I can tell you, Deko Zhao doesn't like that move one bit. Moving this rook to the open file is very unpleasant. I would strongly consider just giving up the rook, checking again. Knight f6, very good move. Just get the pieces out. Knight takes d5. Yep. Okay, knight e4, attacking the queen. The queen should just move away. You can even sack your rook for it. Black is up so much material that it doesn't really matter if he's losing 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 points. He started with an extra 19, and he actually hasn't lost any points at all so far, and white is about to lose a lot more points. f5 is a big threat, chasing that knight away and opening up the battery of the queen and rook. Okay, I think Daniel is going to play bishop d4 soon. If f5, surely he'll play bishop d4. That's why he played c3, so that he can attack the queen and hope to survive another move. Okay, well, Nighttime 03 is not falling for it. Time is the only thing that can save Deko Zhao. The only thing, and I think it's not going to save him. This knight is getting kicked, allowing this bishop to come in, allowing this rook to come in. It's actually made in 3 or made in 2. Yep, that's a good move. Now the queen can come in, and the queen can deliver checkmate in various ways, which is what will happen. I will suggest that queen and 2 rooks is a bit much. See how he responds to that. I don't know if they'll play another game. But it's always good to see how much does Dick Coach Zhao have to give up. Or actually, I'm getting it's auto balanced. So what that means is you can request chess.com to give you a odds match, and it will automatically take pieces away based on the difference in rating. So right now the difference in rating is just over 1400 rating points, and it turns out that my guess is that nighttime is a lot better than 433. So I think that there's just no way Dick Coach Zhao is going to have any chance without queen and rooks. I think he would need at least one rook, probably more than that, for this game to be somewhat balanced. And I think it would be a closer match if they would play without odds than it is for Dick Coach Zhao to not play with queen and rooks. I'm not sure if they'll try it again. If they do, we'll follow the action. And if they don't, we will be back next Sunday. Let's see. What is going to happen? Nothing yet. Okay, I'm getting some more information. Trying different odds. Okay, well, there we go. These are different odds. This should be a pretty close battle. 3 minutes each. The lower the time, the better this is for Dick Coach Zhao, because he has way more experience. And he's now down a rook and a pawn. And I think this is going to be a very, very tough battle for night time. White starts by aiming at this pawn. Black will just castle. Black should move out the knight and castle as well. And it looks like that's what he's doing. He should be a little bit careful. If this bishop comes out to g5, he should strongly consider moving this bishop back and unpinning the knight. This is not a bad move to break the pin. This would be a very dangerous move to play. Okay, he plays a great move. Bishop e7. Very, very good move. So far, nighttime is playing as well as Dick Coach Zhao. Now just d6 and get this bishop out and take it from there. He's thinking, okay, not a bad move either, I guess. He's creating a discovery. Pieces will get traded, but the knight is coming in. The queen has to come back and protect the c-pawn. And this knight is a target. The knight has no protection, so wherever this knight moves, the queen will attack that knight. So for example, right now the queen has to defend first, because he cannot allow it to be taken. And it should come back. Well, he goes to d6. Not bad either. He's protecting the pawn. And he's actually also protecting against knight e5, because then the queen takes back and protects the knight. So maybe queen d6 was a very strong move. Okay. Dick Coach Zhao is trying a different way. He's just attacking this knight, and he's looking for this knight to come into f5. Knight f4. I like that move a lot. Now the knight comes in, attacks the queen, and probably he's going to lose the c-pawn. He has to be very careful because he might lose the queen. If the queen goes to g6, then there's a knight fork on e7. And there it comes, knight fork on e7 incoming. The knight can take, the knight recaptures, and then the king has to move, and the knight will take the queen. And white is then up some material. Or maybe it's even. Actually, it's completely even. It's a dead heat. It's a knight and a rook and a pawn against a queen. But The initiative is definitely for white. White should be looking to attack the black king. King g1. I fail to see. This move I like a lot, and just play f4. Okay, black just gave away a pawn on d5, so white took it. Yeah, it's not so easy for black to use all his pieces to play. I would probably think about moving this bishop there and getting these rooks connected to each other. So they double the force on the back rank. But it's much easier to play for white, this position. The queen has all kinds of good possibilities. It can come out and sit on this square where it's close to the enemy pieces. He might do it right now, in fact. Maybe queen f3 is another interesting option. Okay, so the bishop is under attack again. Maybe should move out there. Maybe the knight should come back to protect. The problem is when the bishop moves. Okay, he found his knight e7 move. Very good. This is quite an important move to keep the game going. d6, very strong move. He's going to come into b7, attack the knight. And this pawn is still hanging. Okay, not a bad idea, except that the knight is hanging. So white is now taking over the game and winning on time. Yes, this was a rook and a pawn in a 3-minute game are not enough yet for night time to stand the power of Dick Coach Zhao. Alright, it's 1-1. Maybe we'll play one more with odds that are in between spotting a queen and two rooks and a rook and a pawn. Let's see. This opening started very well for nighttime. It sort of got a little bit difficult to play when he moved his knight to h5. I mean, it's not a bad idea. Things get traded, but now this queen becomes a target by the white knight. This knight becomes a target by the white queen. And suddenly he had to go into the defensive. And a few moves later, there was the knight fork coming in on e7. And after that, black was in big trouble. So in this position, black should have played d6 and bring his bishop out and play very solidly, just compact, keep his pieces together, and at some point he has to start looking for ways to get his extra material counting. Alright, now they're playing a game in 5, and this time Dick Coach Zhao is playing without knights. I would still think that Dick Coach Zhao is probably the favorite in this game. But let's see how nighttime is going about it. King h1, nice move. He's ready to play pawn to f4 and stepping out of this diagonal for the bishop. So that's the point of king h1. And white does really want to open this f-file, and he's going to do that. And after that, he would like to bring this bishop out and put pressure on this knight and a pin, and the rook is joining as well. So, alright, that's a nice move. The queen has to move, but the queen is now ready to come out as well, aiming at that knight, aiming at the bishop. Knight c6 is a nice move. I think white will probably play queen h4 or take and then play bishop g5. Alright, h3 is okay, but actually the bishop was more of a problem for black on this square than it was good. He should move it to e6, so he went to d7, second best option. And now white is probably looking to open again and play bishop g5, or maybe one move I like is just c3 to make sure that knight cannot come in and try to harass the pawn on c2. Okay, now the bishop has to come back. He did it in the previous game. Will he do it again? The second best move is probably bishop e6, because if the bishop takes, the f-pawn takes, and the rook opens up to this. But this is a very dangerous situation. Okay, this move is not going to help. I'm not sure if I would have taken with the bishop. I might have been more tempted to take with the rook. Okay, the pawn has to recapture, which opens up this g file, and white is trying to use that to his attack, but that's not going to be all that easy. How is he going to coordinate his pieces? Well, the knight could jump in and jump to e3, backed up by this bishop, or the knight can retreat. I'm not sure which one is best. Another thing black could consider is moving this rook and attack the queen. Okay, the queen attacks this. It's not a huge deal. Although if the rook comes down, then you have to start be careful about your f-pawn and your h-pawn. I think knight c2 would actually be a decent move now. Bishop e6. Okay, it gives up the knight, but I like it as well because he's now trading this light squared bishop, which was aiming at this pawn on f7. So he is thinking about king safety. White should just take this knight and then take the bishop, or the other way around, and just be satisfied with at least winning something back. Black should recapture, or capture the bishop first and then recapture, one way or the other. I would prefer to keep this bishop alive, actually. Yep. And now white has to take a decision, make a decision. If the rook comes in, then the bishop drops back and spins the white rook to the white queen, which would be bad news. So if he takes with the queen, then black can trade queens, and the black king will be safe immediately. So white does neither. He's using his rook to come to the half open file. There's only one black pawn, and if black takes, I'm guessing he is going to take back with the rook, attacking the bishop. Not sure how useful it will be, but white has to do something to try to generate some play. Rook g6 would be a pretty good defensive move. Rook g7 as well. Now it helps this pawn just to make sure no funny business happens with this queen on that pawn. a3, okay. The bishop should move back here or here. Maybe even here, actually. Bishop d2, bishop g5. Okay, okay, black missed a chance. He could have taken the bishop and then taking with this rook. So white missed a chance to win some material back. Now he's forcing black into the best move. He's actually getting ready to push this pawn and attack the white queen. Pretty close battle. Knight time will have to watch out for his time. 1 minute 48 against 2 minute 56. Time will be white's best friend and might be his only friend. So what should black do? He's up material. He should try to get this rook into some sort of aggressive position. I would probably move up my queen and get my rook into a battery with the other rook and double up on this g file. That is probably what I would be looking at. Another option would be to try to get this rook active along the a file, move this pawn out. Okay, bishop takes bishop is not bad. Maybe this queen can come in on one of these squares now. That looks pretty good. I would probably not trade queens with black because I think white's king is in bigger danger. Black's king is safe, white is an extra piece. Queen e4 is what a lot of good players would play. And Daniel should consider trading. He does not. Plays queen f5. He's probably getting ready to get that rook to the open file and enter. Queen b2 would be threatening mate in 1. I would think about rook d8 or rook g8. Queen d2 also threatens mate in 1. Actually, I like that move quite a bit, because blocking with the rook is impossible because it drops the other rook. So now white has to put his rook in a more passive position. He's no longer lined up with the queen. He's still looking to play rook d1. He might actually do it here. I mean, it's not great for him, but then black might have to work to have his rooks coordinate. White does not do it. He's going to play rook f2. So far, black plays a very good game, but 22 seconds will be not enough to beat Daniel. It's not going to happen. Yeah, black will definitely lose on time. Now, if Hikaru Nakamura would be playing with black, he would definitely win this game against Daniel, because 19 seconds is enough for him to play more than 2 games in a row. He would be able to pull off about 50 moves. Would be very easy for him to play, and he would win this position with black. That's how good he is. But for mere mortals to win this position with black in 19 seconds, it's just not going to happen. Daniel's taking, Coach Zhao is taking his time. I'm not sure why. Well, he trades queens, which is a reasonable option. And black mouse slips. He was intending to take back, but it doesn't really matter so much because he was going to lose on time anyway. So actually a very good game by nighttime. And Daniel, okay, it's let's say a bit of a joke or fair play as well. Okay, I know you made a mouse slip and black resigned. He was going to lose on time. Well, this was the best game of all 3 for sure. Dick Coach Zhao spotted 2 knights, and nighttime played extremely well. He only lost one of his pieces back, and he still had a winning position all the way up to the end, except he was out of time. Looks like they'll try this one more time, and we'll follow along. Same game, where white spots 2 knights. It's 5 minutes, which is going to still be black's biggest trouble. I'm a little nervous about this knight move. Okay, look at that. Double attack. He has to block. The queen will take the knight. White has regained 1 pawn, but more importantly, black's king can no longer castle. And this makes his position a little more tricky to play. King e8 is okay. Now he should be looking at developing his bishop to g7 quickly, because this diagonal... Oh, I'm getting a little nervous. This queen could now... These 2 rooks, they can come... And there it goes. Alright, this is game over. Daniel Dick Coach Zhao will win this game. Black had to play knight f6 to block the attack on the rook. Now he will not survive it. Bishop g5 is a pretty good move. Even though black still has, I guess it's even in material, it just it's a very difficult position to play for black, because the king cannot easily escape from the white queen. Now king f7 has to be played, only move to defend your knight. It's attacked twice, only protected once. The bishop is pinned to the king, so the king is the only piece who can do this now, and he has to do it. If he doesn't do it, he will probably be checkmated fairly quickly, because not only is the bishop going to take the knight, it's also going to trap the queen. So black is about to lose the queen if he's not careful, and when only one move is good to defend, it just means that you're that much closer to defeat. And then there's only 3.5 minutes on this clock, so it's just trying to solve one thing is going to make the other thing much more hard. He does find that move, but Daniel finds a very good move in response. He's attacking the pinned piece. The knight cannot move away. Well, he can, but then he's losing the queen. And there is a cancellation, I guess. I just learned something new. I guess you can allow your opponent to take moves back. Oh no, it was my guess. I clicked on it and then something happened. I guess you can guess moves. I was thinking about bishop e7, and this must be the best move because I think it guaranteed that queens will be traded. Okay, now, yep. The queen will probably take, and the queen will take. And the black king is, well, he does not. He gives black an option to keep his bishop alive. It's very interesting. I think he did not intend to do this. Because, okay, now it's working out. He can actually take. And that might be a quick checkmate here, depending on where black goes. But if king moves over, pawn takes, threatening mate there. If king moves up, the pawn could still take, the king moves out, and the pawn could actually try to run across. So this worked out for Daniel. The pawn will take. And then there's no defense against queen g7. I mean, you can sack your queen, but then it will just be a matter of a few moves before a white rook will join the attack and the black king will be checkmated. But really, there's not much else to do. I guess no. I mean, there's the threat of check and mate. The threat of check, push check into queen. Not mate, but very close to mate. And now it's mate. Alright, with that, we're going to sign off. Thank you for following along and see you next